The room we never touched held everything I feared most. I moved into my grandmother's old house 3 weeks after her funeral. She left it to me in her will, quaint, remote, and oddly well-preserved. It sat at the edge of a forgotten village, surrounded by tall pines and the soft hush of ever-present fog. I'd been here a few times as a kid, but my memories of the place were fragmented. Mostly blurry pictures of gingerbread cookies, mothball-scented blankets, and an attic door that was always locked. The first few days were uneventful. I worked from home, unpacked slowly, and fixed minor issues the place had from sitting empty. But on the fourth night, while trying to find an extension cord in one of the old storage cabinets, I noticed something strange. The attic door was open. I froze in the hallway, just staring. The door had always been locked. My grandmother was strict about it. She'd swat my hand away any time I got curious as a child. "You stay out of there," she used to say. "Ain't nothing up there but shadows and dust." I climbed the stairs cautiously, expecting to find nothing but old boxes. But the attic wasn't just storage, it was lived in. There was a small bed made with clean sheets, a table, a candle stub still sitting in a dish. And on the far wall, dozens of photographs were pinned up, all black and white portraits of people I didn't recognize. Some were scratched out, eyes gouged through. Others had notes scribbled beneath them in shaky handwriting. I turned to leave, stomach tight with unease, but a sudden creak from the floorboards stopped me. I wasn't alone up here. I spun around, hard hammering, but no one was visible. The room was still, except for the flickering candle I hadn't noticed was lit. I could have sworn it had been extinguished moments ago. My phone light danced across the room, catching dust motes and glinting off something metallic on the table, an old key, flat and blackened with age. I grabbed it instinctively and backed away from the attic. I tried to sleep that night, but my dreams were a mess of flickering photos and whispering voices I couldn't quite make out. The next morning, I returned to the attic. Everything looked the same, except one new addition now. A photo of me, taken from outside the house, taped to the wall. My blood turned ice. I hadn't noticed anyone taking pictures. I checked the corners of the attic for a camera but found nothing. I went into town that day, needing air, company, something. The village locals were friendly in that small town way, but when I mentioned my grandmother's house, the mood shifted. Old man Denton, who ran the hardware store, looked at me grimly and said, "You're staying up in that Turner house, eh? Strange folk, your gran. Used to hear things from up in that attic. Some say she was keeping someone locked up there. Others say she was hiding from something worse." I asked what he meant, but he just shook his head and muttered, "Attic was nailed shut for a reason." That night, I locked my bedroom door and placed the old attic key on the nightstand. I had this deep, irrational sense that the house was watching me, that the air was listening. As I drifted off, I dreamt of my grandmother again, her whispering warnings I couldn't understand, pointing toward the attic door. At 2:13 a.m., I woke up to a soft knock. Not at the front door. Not at the window. The knock came from inside the house. 3 slow, deliberate taps. I grabbed the key and crept into the hallway. The attic door was open again. I climbed the stairs with the slow dread of someone approaching their own grave. But this time, I wasn't alone. A figure was sitting at the edge of the bed, thin, almost skeletal, with a shock of white hair and long fingers curled around their knees. They were rocking slightly, muttering something I couldn't quite make out. "Hello?" I asked. The figure stopped rocking. Their head jerked up, eyes wide, mouth twitching. "You're not her," the voice rasped. "Where is she?" I backed away, stumbling into the wall. "She's gone. My grandmother died last month." The figure began to cry. Softly at first, then louder, gasping like he hadn't spoken in years. "She promised," he sobbed. "She said she'd never leave me here." I didn't know what to say. Who the hell was this man? "I'm calling the police," I said, backing down the stairs. "You can't," the man shouted. "You don't understand. She kept it out. She kept it locked away. Now it's in the house." That stopped me cold. "What's in the house?" He didn't answer. Just started rocking again, eyes unfocused. I ran back to my room and did what I said. I called the police. They came, searched the attic, and found nothing. No man. No photos. Nothing. Just dust and cobwebs. They looked at me like I was crazy. "You sure you weren't dreaming, sir?" one of them asked. "I know what I saw." He just nodded politely, told me to get some rest, and left. The attic was nailed shut the next morning. But that night, I found the same old key back on my nightstand, and a new photo pinned to my door. of me sleeping, taken from inside the room. The photo made my stomach drop. It was me, under the covers, mouth slightly open, clearly asleep. The shot was taken from inside my room. No flash, no blur. Whoever took it had been in there with me. My chest tightened. I didn't know if it was fear or nausea, but I tore the photo down and locked every door and window in the house. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the living room with a kitchen knife on the coffee table, the old key clenched in my fist. Every creak in the floorboards made my pulse jump. At 3:27 a.m., I heard it again, footsteps overhead. But not the light shuffle of a man. These were heavier, dragging, like something being pulled. I went up, knife in hand. The attic door was still nailed shut. Still, the sound continued. I pressed my ear to the wood, breathing, not gasping, not crying. Just calm, steady breathing from the other side. I stumbled back, my legs going numb. When I finally built up the nerve to pry one nail loose, the breathing stopped. Just like that, cut off mid-inhale. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. The next morning, I walked down to the town archive. I needed answers about the house, my grandmother, that man. What I found chilled me to the core. My grandmother had a brother. His name was Edward Turner. Declared missing in 1972. There were rumors. Town whispers about her keeping him hidden due to episodes. One note on the record said psychotic episodes involving hallucinations, sleepwalking, and identity shifts. But that wasn't the worst part. According to county records, Edward Turner was legally dead, pronounced in 1993. I couldn't reconcile it. If Edward died in 1993, who was the man in the attic? Was I seeing a ghost? A squatter pretending to be him? None of it added up. That night, I sat at the dining table with a folder of clippings, records, and the old key beside me. Something kept tugging at me, not just fear, but curiosity. Then I saw it. One of the photos from the attic, someone had scribbled, "Keep him locked," across the back. Who was him? Edward? And what if he wasn't what needed to be locked away? Maybe he was guarding something. Maybe he wasn't the monster. Maybe he was the jailer. That night, I made a decision. I was going to open the attic door again. I removed each nail, hands trembling. When I opened it, the air was cold, unnaturally so. Like opening a freezer. But the attic was empty again. Nothing but the table, the bed, the photos, except now, all the faces had been scratched out completely. Even mine. And on the table was something new, a small, cloth-bound journal. Inside, it read like a record. Not from Edward, from my grandmother. Page after page describing nightly visits, scratching inside the walls, things moving on their own. She described hearing Edward's voice when she knew he wasn't there. Or wasn't alive. The final entry simply read, "It's pretending to be him now. I've locked it in again. If you're reading this, don't let it out." I dropped the journal and backed away, tripping over a floorboard. The candle stub flickered again, lit without a flame. That's when I saw it, near the rafters. A shape crouched in the dark, too still to be natural. Its eyes reflected like glass marbles, unblinking, watching me. It moved. Not like a man, not like any living thing. It slithered down the beam, spine cracking into shapes the human body wasn't meant to form. I bolted. I slammed the attic doors shut, drove 3 nails back in with a hammer from the basement, and dragged a dresser in front of it. I don't remember much after that, just the shaking, the endless waiting for morning. I might have passed out on the couch. When the sun rose, everything was still. Silent. Peaceful. But the key was gone. I checked every drawer, every counter. It had vanished. Later that day, I got a knock at the door. A young woman stood there, probably in her early 20s. Nervous. Holding a box. "Hi. I'm sorry. Are you the new owner of the Turner house?" "Yes," I said slowly. "I think this belongs to you." She handed me the box. Inside were Polaroids. Dozens of them. Photos of her. Of other people. All sleeping. All taken from inside homes, cars, bedrooms. She whispered, "It used to live in my grandmother's attic, too." She told me her name was Claire. Her grandmother had died 2 years ago. Lived in a house about 60 miles from mine. Different town, different county, but the same story. An attic always locked. A strange, emaciated man sometimes seen rocking in the dark. Whispered names. Photos taken without explanation. And eventually, a journal warning her not to open the door. "But I did," she said. "I was stupid. I thought it was just an old family ghost story. I let it out. I asked what it was. She shook her head. I don't think it's human. I don't think it ever was. It's not even a spirit. It's something else. Something old. Something that moves from attic to attic, pretending to be someone familiar. That's how it gets you to trust it. I asked why bring the photos to me now. Because it followed the photos. It always does. I thought burning them would work, but it didn't. So I put them in a box, left it far away, and now it's your problem. I started to speak, but she was already walking away, fast. I stood there holding the box like it was radioactive. I didn't sleep that night. I left every light on in the house. At 3 a.m., the power went out. The darkness felt like it had weight, like it leaned into me, thick and smothering. I scrambled for my phone, but the battery was dead. Not low, not dying, dead. It had been at 80% earlier. Then came the scratching. Soft at first, like a rat in the walls. Then louder. It was above me. I grabbed the hammer again, my heart galloping. The scratching turned into banging. The attic door shook. Wood splintered. Then silence. That's when I heard the voice. Not outside the room. Inside. Right behind me. You let it out, the voice whispered. Now you take its place. I turned, swinging wildly, but hit nothing. Then the lights came back on. Everything looked normal. Except the attic door was gone. Not closed. Gone. Just wall where it used to be. I looked around the house for hours. Nothing had changed, but nothing felt the same. That night, I dreamed I was in the attic. Only this time, I was the one tied to the bed. And something else was wearing my skin, living my life. Weeks have passed. I don't go into the attic anymore. Hell, I can't even find it. It's like the house rearranged itself to keep it hidden. I still hear noises at night. I still find photos of myself in the shower, brushing my teeth, standing at the window. The worst part? I don't remember doing any of those things. I've started recording myself while I sleep. And that's where I saw it. On the 5th night, at 3:14 a.m., I sit up suddenly, eyes open wide. I stare straight at the camera. And I smile. Not like me. Not like anything human. Then I say, in a low rasp that sounds nothing like my voice, you let it out. Now it lives in you. The video ends with me crawling out of frame, backwards. I don't remember any of it. But now I dream in its voice. I see through its eyes. It shows me attics across the country. Locked doors. Flickering candles. I think it's looking for the next one. So if you ever inherit an old house, whatever you do, do not open the attic. I stayed in a motel for 2 days. A stale, dusty room with buzzing fluorescent lights and a patchy brown carpet. But I didn't care. Every sound made me jump. The fridge kicking on. The TV static. My own breathing. I stared at the door the entire first night, convinced I'd see Claire's eyes peering under it. But they never came. By the second night, I almost convinced myself I was being irrational. Trauma does strange things to the mind. Maybe Claire needed help, and I'd abandoned her. Maybe she wasn't possessed or controlled. Maybe she was simply breaking. But then I remembered the tape. The recording of her voice shifting mid-sentence. Her face going blank. That other voice taking over. The cold in the attic. The smell. The presence. I didn't imagine any of it. I returned home on the 3rd day at dawn. The front door was open. Just slightly, cracked, like it had been watching for me. I stepped in with shaking hands. Claire, I whispered. The silence was wrong. Too still, too clean. Like a replica of my house had been made in a dream. I crept down the hallway and turned toward the kitchen. My stomach dropped. Claire was sitting at the table, dressed in a bright yellow sundress. Her hair was perfect. Her eyes locked onto me the second I stepped in. I was wondering when you'd come back, she said, smiling. Not blinking, not moving, just smiling. I didn't answer. I backed up slowly. She tilted her head, bird-like. It's not what you think, you know. I'm still me. I've always been me. I said nothing. My back hit the wall. She stood, gracefully, and walked around the table. It's not possession, really. Not in the way you're imagining. More like alignment. I tried to move toward the door, but she was faster than I remembered. She was in front of me in a flash, her hand brushing my face. Cold. Ice cold. It likes to be in things. That's all. Houses. People. Stories. Even silence. It doesn't kill, not right away, it just gets inside. I shoved her back and ran. Out the door. Across the street. I don't remember screaming, but the neighbors said I was. They said I was incoherent, babbling about demons and addicts, and Claire not being Claire. The cops went into the house. Claire was calm. She played the tape and offered them tea. They said I was having a mental break. They sectioned me for 72 hours. During those 3 days in the psych ward, something changed. At first, I was terrified they'd let me go home. But by the end of the third night, I started to feel something worse. I didn't want to leave. Because I knew it might already be with me. It started small. A light flickering for a beat too long. My reflection in the window lingering half a second after I moved. Voices when I closed my eyes. Not loud, just soft whispers behind my thoughts. The doctor said I had PTSD, sleep deprivation, hallucinations due to trauma. They released me after a week. Claire picked me up. We drove in silence. She didn't ask how I was. I didn't ask where she had been. But when we turned onto our street, I saw it. The attic window was open again. Claire didn't react. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat on the couch while Claire moved through the house, humming softly, cleaning, rearranging photos, sometimes stopping to just stare at me for minutes at a time, as if memorizing my shape. Around 3 a.m., I finally asked, "Why me?" She looked up from the floor, crouched like an animal. Her head tilted again. "Because you stayed, even when you knew. That's what it wants. Believers." I didn't respond. I turned away. The whispering started again, not just in my head, this time. I swear I could feel it coming through the walls. The next morning, I left again. Rented a room 2 towns over. Different name. Paid in cash. But I can feel it. In the floorboards. In my dreams. In the pauses between breaths. It's not in the house. It's in the story. Every time I retell it, write it down, think about it, you feel it too, don't you? That cold ripple down your spine. That stillness in your room. That thought, right now, that someone is behind you. It's not a haunting. It's not a demon. It's a presence. And it's listening. Because that attic was never a place. It was a door. In telling this story, you just opened it.